wanted to ask you about God.
Let's go back to before the war, and the family life was sort of around the church. If that's like, my mum was in a. I always remember she used to go exercising in this woman's club, which was from the church. The brothers, Len, my older brother, and that they were in the church, but it was I forget what they used to call it, but it was sort of a boys' club, but it was all run by the church,
right?
You know,
yeah.
Because in those days we had no television or anything like that, and if we were very, very rich, we had a radio, but so we weren't away from church. The church, although we weren't church people as such, our lives were governed by the church. You know,
the church was well ingrained into
was
the
all
community.
part of it, because that was the way of life. You know.
Yeah.
So naturally, when I was evacuated, Ethel was certainly a very religious lady,
yeah.
And so we used to say our prayers at night and all that, and she used to talk about things to us, and also the first thing I did was to go to the church that she was and join the choir.
Right.
So on my Sundays and some nights was all tied up with choir practice and the church, because we had 2 or 3 services on a Sunday, and Ethel used to come. We didn't have the evening song used to be in the afternoon because of blackout and all that, and I always remember she used to come to evening song, you know, and then after the service we always used to go down to town to Pelosi's, which was an Italian joker's ice cream parlour, and she always bought us a big ice cream thing, you know.
Okay.
And I remember Pelosi used to have a big notice up saying, because he was an Italian, telling that he was a naturalised Briton and his son was in the Royal Air Force.
Oh, okay.
Because
please don't beat me up.
Well,
that
was basically what it was, because some of these idiots, you know, used to go around and sort of be naughty, but nobody did it to him, not in Paynton where I was. Anyway, so the church has been a part of me all the time. But I've even read the lesson. Remember, you know, I don't know if you do that because you're a heathen, but it's you have a carol service at Christmas, and the episodes of the Bible are read out after each hymn, right?
Yeah.
And the vicar does, well, he does the last one, but you get different people doing, and the choir boy does one, and I was nominated to do this. And the thing that upset Ethel was that I didn't practice, and she was real huffy with me over this. But it worked out, you know. You stand there and there's the Bible there, and the episode that I had to read was that there were shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch on their flock by night, and lo and behold, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and they saw the stuff. You know that of course you wouldn't know that. Again, you're bloody heathen, but it's a well-known bit, and so I read that out, yeah. And the thing that used to amuse us as boys, because boys being boys, they were horrors. We said, for this evening song, which was in the afternoon, there was a great big queue of people, all older people, to get into church. Yeah. And we used to say, that's trying to get a one-way ticket to heaven. Yeah. Anyway, but so that in those days, because of the war, the churches were full. Yeah. Right. So that was I was to say, and then of course once my voice started to break, I went in as a server in the church, you know, and we used to wait on the vicar, you know, or carry the cross on the processions.
So back in those days, would you have regarded yourself as religious? Did
No.
you believe in God?
No, for goodness sake, it was something to do, wasn't it? I just went there and sung in the choir.
You used to go. You was a pretty chill guy, sort of guy. I mean, you say pretty much the same about the Navy. Oh, we're sailing off to war. It was just a job.
Well, it was. I got to be. I was head boy in the choir.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to be head boy.
So it was all good times, though, wasn't it? I mean.
The other thing was, see, being also in my day, weddings, they used to ask for choir boys. You see.
Yeah.
Which was good because I could get time off from school, and I also got half a crown for this wedding. And being head boy, I used to walk by the bride, going down the aisle.
Oh, okay.
With this, there was what, about half a dozen choir boys, and again with the funerals, I used to get half a crown for funerals. And again, I got time off from school to do that, so I did quite a few of them. Yeah. So you say, did I believe in God and things like that? It was a way of life. Does that sort of ring true?
Yeah.
It was more of a way of life. I tell you, the only time I really believed in God, really thought about it, was again going back to when I was in the Navy. I might have told you this, I said this before, that when we was out Korea, in the middle of the night, action stations were sounded because these Yanks thought there was an enemy submarine in the area, and so action stations. Well, that means all the bulkheads were locked down and the doors were locked, and blokes were either side of the door so nobody could open them, and everything was battened down. But being Fleet Air Arm or Royal Air Service, we had no action stage other than the hangar. And who wants to be in a hangar with a load of bloody aeroplanes loaded up with aviation fuel if you're going to battle?
Yeah.
So, and because my hammock, as I know we was on the hammock, my hammock was strung up right by a bulkhead, outside a bulkhead, you know, that's a side bulkhead.
Oh, right. Why
And
do
my
they just
hammock,
call them sides?
well, it was a side, and the water was there, but I was on waterline, or just under the waterline, which I would be with my hammock. And I thought, well, if there is a torpedo, it's going to come in the hammock with me, eh? And I'm not going to have to worry about much about that hammock. So all I thought, well, if there's a God, and you know, and he said, I believe in God. You know, my faith. Not like that bloke when he says your balls are in your hand, that's a handler, but, you know, my faith's in your hand. And I turned over and went to sleep. And that was that was the time when you believe in God, right?
Yeah.
But as such. But other than that, I'm like you. I've been all around the world, like, as you know, and I've seen religion as religion. And I saw it worked in Malta. I told you about that, didn't I? That we was on a bus in Malta, and we saw this pregnant woman stand up to let this bloody father sit down in the seat. And this father could only been about 20, 25, you know, and the Matlows weren't very happy about that. I mean, although we're all heathens, of course, but we just thought that a pregnant woman don't get up and let this idiot sit down, but they did. Yeah. And that was their religion, because the Roman Catholics, you know, that was up to them if that's what they wanted to believe. And that wasn't my cup of tea. And as I say, I've seen all these. And if you really look at, I know we've gone off the subject, but religion has caused more trouble in the world than anything. Look at the nonsense that's going on now with ISIS and all that rubbish. It's all religion. You know, I mean, I got a Buddha there, but I don't worship him. But they seem to do it, and you know, why can't a woman show her face and all this nonsense? And because they're treated like cattle as some, because the religion suits these blokes to treat them like so. And how can a man seriously be celibate all his life? You can't do it. And yet the Roman Catholics expect their clergy to be celibate. And that's why they do play with little boys. It's obvious, you know what's gone on.
Mm.
So religion, and they all blame it in the name of God. This fellow up there, it's their way of worshipping him. Well, and I reckon if there was a God, if there is a God, and this is what I think very seriously about, why does he allow wars? And that, I know you've got to thin the population out, I appreciate it, but animals, like the lion, why does he allow a lion to chase and pull down and kill animals, right? Yeah. I mean, that's cruelty, as far as I can see. And it's so evident, if there is a God, well, why does he allow that kind of thing to go on? And then, of course, if you think about that and listen to what these preachers, they'll tell you that that's all right, because God said after the great floods, and they said to Noah or something, that now he can eat all the animals, right? This is what they tell you on there. But all these preachers twist what's said, right? And you take the Bible, and each one of these jokers he's only writing about his experience. Now I'm telling you about my experiences there, but I could enlarge on the good parts of my being, and down cry the other. So it's only writing that people's done, and then also in the Bible you've got X number of acts, right? But there's dozens more that hasn't even reached the Bible. So as all these old fellas have sat down and written about their memoirs, okay? And so whether you believe or not, I quite believe that there was a man like Jesus, but I don't believe he was the Son of God. My thoughts would be that he was certainly a great man, a prophet, and he was a great man, and what he did prophesy was fairness to people, because in those days, let's be fair, human beings were rubbish as far as, you know, the hierarchy. They were just expendable. And so if you put it in common words, which I suppose you could, he was a good communist.
He was, yeah.
And he was the start...
More of a political movement.
Yeah, he was the start of a good communist, and he had his followers, and they followed on. So if you're asking me, do I believe in God? As I say, I've seen religions, I know what I believe, and let's be fair, if I say no, I don't think there's a God, and I just think that it's an evolution of mankind. But let me tell you, when I do the crossword here, I'm sure it's either your mum or the ex-president of the SPC, because I used to phone her up to get the answers of some of the words, and I'm sure they're helping me do the crossword. So it's a way of belief to keep yourself going, right?
Yeah. You're very wise, Dad. I have spent the last 3 years or more on this journey of exploring all this stuff every night, you know, and I have just exhausted so much brain power on it, and I don't know whether I've been it would stand to reason I've probably been influenced by your thoughts on it. I've never sat down directly and talked to you about it, I don't think, but I would have overheard things, I would have observed things. But I don't think I ever heard you express what you just expressed, and that's the view that I came to, that a lot of the time I think you perhaps indulge in what I call self-delusion. You know that perhaps when you're dead, and there is no God as such. Certainly religion's not right. I mean, how can they all be wrong? Or how can any one of them be right and everyone else be wrong? I mean, let's face it, it's just man-made stories. But as far as God or spirits or a creator of the universe, was the universe designed and stuff, I know when you're faced with loss, and I've dealt with it more so. It's been amplified for me since Mum died, because that hurts like a bastard. But if you believe that she's dead, and there's never any prospect of seeing her again, it just sucks.
Well, yeah, all right. I can go along with that. But, all right, so you can see where I've got over my mantelpiece, eh?
Yeah.
Now, I speak to her every night. Every night of my life, I say, good night, ladies. And in the morning, I say, good morning.
But you know they're not there, eh? I mean, and that's the point. I mean, let's think this through logically. If I was to die, and let's just say my consciousness, whatever that is not part of my biological self, and somehow survives, and I go up and I meet Mum's consciousness, it's not going to be like, I mean, she's not going to have a body. We live in some sort of fucking gaseous bloody thing. We're not going to be the same people. We're not going to know what it's like to have arms and legs and backaches, and in Mum's case, her eyesight, and you know, like, so it would never be the same. So whatever lies next is what you have lost now. You have fucking lost it. It's gone, and it doesn't matter if there's an afterlife. It's never going to be the same, you know. Like, so, yeah. And I just kind of think sometimes I can understand how people may, in their hearts, know that science is right and religion is wrong and that, but they're quite prepared to go along and still believe in it because it gives them comfort. And you know, losing a loved one is one example. The other thing, and this is why I was asking you, is without being too sort of blunt, as you contemplate your own mortality as you get older, and you know that your time is limited. That also is hard to deal with, isn't it? No? Do you ever think about death?
Oh yeah, all the time.
You're a happy chap.
Well, no, the thing is this: you go to sleep at night, don't you?
Yeah.
And you go to sleep.
Yeah.
Well, that's death.
Yeah.
That's what death will be to you.
Yeah.
And so you I mean, if you've been good like me all the time, you go to heaven. If you've been a real sod, you go to hell, which is what they tell you. Eh?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be fair.
Yeah.
But I think heaven and hell's on earth, quite seriously. It's the way you live and the way your life is. I mean, would be my interpretation of it. But no, I don't fear death. In fact, in some cases, I welcome it. I would welcome it in the fact that this world is all ups and downs at the moment, and I don't understand quite what's going on with lots of things, and so perhaps think, well, at 86, I might be better off without, out of it. But
do you believe there's an afterlife?
No.
So you believe that when you go to sleep,
that's it.
You
talk about upside down. I must just tell you, sometimes in the Navy, I couldn't be bothered to sling the hammock, because you sling it every night, and in the morning you rope it up and put it in a locker, because they reckon that with your hammocks tied up properly, they float. So if if your boat gets sunk, you've got something to grab hold of.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
that's what they tell you. Anyway, sometimes I couldn't be bothered, and so I used to just lay my hammock out on the mess table and go to sleep on the table. But what I had to do was I had to hold on to the end of the tables like that with my hands and hook my feet over because the bloody ship was going up and down. And when you go, well, at least with a hammock, you pretty well stayed still. Anyway, I'm getting off the subject, but I just thought I'd bring that in. Yeah. Now, where were we?
I have no idea.
Yeah. No. Look, you take. All right. You take your uncle. What was his name?
Norman?
Norman.
Okay.
He was psychic, so he says, right?
Yeah.
And he used to make people well. And so your grandmother on their side also was psychic, right? Well, was involved in it. But I remember quite when my dad died, and Brother Len suggested Mum went down to Cornwall and live with him. I was pleased because I didn't want them to rope my mother into that kind of life, because they said to me that they had this vision. They said that my father was up there and he'd got hold of John Gore. Now that was a brother-in-law of mine who shot himself, right? He borrowed the neighbour's gun and shot himself in the neighbour's house. So he made a mess there. Anyway, he shot himself. But so as he shot himself, he couldn't go into heaven. You know, nobody wanted him, and he floated around. But my dad, when he was up there, and he took John Gore under his wing, and so they could go into heaven. Now, my dad was one of the biggest boozers under the bloody sun. Yeah, you know. So let's get things in their perspective. And I mean, the last thing I could see, he never went to church. He never did anything apart from booze. And I think we've got some other children somewhere else, because I think he sowed his wild oats a bit. How come that he was so good that he could float around and take John Gore, who shot himself, into heaven? And that's what. So that was what they came across. So, but by the same token, I told you that I've seen angels. But so the point is, do you see them actually, or is that in your mind? And I think this is where religion comes in. You can, all right, so they say you're an atheist or agnostic, you don't believe in nothing, but that's not quite true. You do believe in something. I mean, if you're agnostic, you believe you're an agnostic, but you've got to believe in something, because otherwise, how can you get through the world? You believe because you've got a boy. You believe in him. So you work and try and sustain. But whether you believe in God or whatever, you've got a belief of something, and you believe that in yourself, that you're able to do this. So that if it comforts you, and this again is why I don't downcry any religious person if they are religious, if they are comforted by the thought that there is a God, even the Buddhists and all that rubbish, I might see the faults, and like with the Roman Catholics, I can see the faults there. I mean, at one time they weren't allowed to use birth control or anything like that. The Pope said, you know, and how the hell could he sort these things out? But if these people, if it comforts them, then it's not up to us to interfere. Let's put it this way: if they believe in it, I'll just go back to what I said. If it comforts them to believe in something, that's fair. But you don't. I mean, if you was a born again Christian, right? And you started to lay the law down to me about. Well, I tell you, I had an instance. That one of the caregivers I had
That's
here,
right, yeah.
she came, and it was God, not religion. God did this. God did, and I did talk to her a bit, but I didn't want to know. I've been around. I've seen that. I just explained these things to her, and I wasn't. I didn't want a discussion with her, right? Because whether you could discuss, it's like politics, you could discuss it, but you only lose your temper and all that. So I did get the easiest way. I got her removed. Right? That she don't come to me anymore, which is fair. She can, but if she wants to be God, that's up to her.
Well,
You can't. You don't only blame religious people. You remember there are politicians, okay?
yeah.
So you've got Labour politicians, you've got communists and conservatives and national. They're all right in their own minds, and they do push it on you. So religion will come to me comes in the same category that I don't discuss politics with anybody. One, I wasn't allowed to in the Navy anyway, because that was a no-no, and so was whistling, by the way, in the Navy. You weren't allowed to whistle?
Why not?
Well, because the big mutiny, when all the Navy mutinied, and the signal was a whistle, whistling, and so that's you weren't allowed to whistle, and that was it's still whether it's I mean I'm old now, but in my day it was a no-no. Yeah, so you see, you got all these things. The point is, if you was a Labour man, I wouldn't argue with you. If that's what you believe, then that's fair. Because I don't believe in that. Well, let's put it this way: certain things I do, yeah, and communists, I believe in quite a few of the communist doctrines, but all these things have a hierarchy, right? And if you look at it, it's them that manipulate these things, and it gets out of hand. Communism was wonderful. You take Russia. When there was communists there, let's be fair, or a French Revolution, all these had plenty, sat on all these poor buggers, right? And so that was why you got this revolution. But as soon as you got the revolution, then they got rid of all them, didn't they? But you got another hierarchy. And it was the same with your communists in Russia. They were the same. They had all the tough nose, but then up come this revolution, and then Stalin got in, and what did he ruled, but anybody that he didn't like, he shot. I've always put it this way. Well, I know it's very naive for me, but I look at it. Why should a brain surgeon, who's really apt, why should he only have the same amount of money and dealings as a dustman? Right?
Yeah.
Because
we need brain surgeons, and there has to be an incentive for people to go and train and dedicate
get to
their
that
lives
stage rather than. So he does need a little bit of. So he thinks it's got a hierarchy, and so no matter what happens, this hierarchy will rule whatever it is. And so what I would do, and going back to the beginning of what we were saying, I think people can believe what they like, providing they don't push it on me or my people. And if it makes them happy, then I don't deny it. But no, I'm not a knowledgeable man, you know. I'm not a well-educated man.
No, but you're pretty wise.
Well, only by what I've seen. I mean, I've done things that I shouldn't have done, and I've done things that I would like to have done, and so I don't know. It's I've had a good life. Really, I suppose. You actually in your little queer thing there, I see that you've got at the bottom of the second page or the top about what's it like getting really old, and I think we go back as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not saying everybody's like this, although a lot of old people lose their marbles,
Yeah.
and they go into homes, and I'm not going into a home. I don't care what you and your bloody brothers are talking about. But I sit here now that and I spend lots of time on my own, of course, and I recall lots of things that's gone on in my life. Yeah, and I'm ashamed of some things, seriously, but I'm very proud of other things that I've done.
Yeah.
But that's the way of life, you know. Yeah. I mean, I've served my country, even as a 9-year-old kid. When I was a messenger for air raids and all this shit. All right, so I wasn't in the Blitz as such, but I was, served my country. I joined the Army Cadets in case we had an invasion. So you've seen that in my uniform and we ride. So, but it was all a big adventure. Let's be fair, and I've taken most things as an adventure. It's like I joined the Navy only because they wouldn't take me in the Marines because I was colourblind. But so I took the Navy. I enjoyed my time in the Navy, a lot of it. I had no time for a lot of the officers. I just thought they were stuck-up little pricks, and they were. They're toffee-nosed little, and they still are. And they think, again, you've got this class thing, they're there, and you're shit. And that happens. And then, of course, in the Navy, as I was coming out up to my time, they were taking in these people from university as teachers and making them lieutenants. Well, they might be very good teachers and be very educational because they went to university, but they didn't go to bloody career. Or like I did, and they thought their shit didn't stink. So that was another reason when my time was up, I got out. And the other thing was they started to bring in apprentices, and they brought these apprentices in, and they gave them a Killix badge and a hook, and put them in a PO's mess. And then within 12 months they were made POs, and then another 12 months or so they were chiefs. And I remember being in a PO's mess there once there, and the men under punishment came in, and this bloke, one of these PO fellas said, I said, well, we better tidy up our mess, for rounds. Oh no, let the men under punishment do that, he said. And I said, look son, you don't have to do nothing in this Navy to get under punishment, and you don't, it's just your bad luck if you get caught.
Day, yeah.
And I said, it's our mess, we clean it up. And I said, that's the way I work. And anyway, they decided that they would do that. But so when you get these type of people, you think, and the main thing I thought was, if I sign on, when I'm 40, and because in those days 40 was very old, so I thought, I've got to salute these bloody 18-year-old idiots. Permission to go ashore, sir? And I thought, no. And that's why I got out the Navy.
You're lucky you don't drive now, I tell you what. It's your hairs stand up on the back of your neck when you get pulled over at a compulsory stop. And there's some young girl there who could be, she'd even be too young for Scott, I'm going, fuck, I can't take this seriously. But you have to. They were in the uniform.
Well, I'll tell you what, but I'm glad I don't drive anyway, and because I gave it up, 10 years ago. But I've been in with you and Phil and that, and I've seen what goes on nowadays, and I think, thank the Lord, I don't drive no more.
Yeah. I'll leave it there.